Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing the first of three phases of my audio upgrade on this car. Phase one is going to be installing these four speakers into all four doors, followed by phase two, which is taking this 5-channel Polk Audio D5005 amp and installing that to drive the speakers as well as drive my subwoofer, which you see down here. That's going to go in the back. Third phase is going to be going back in there and soundproofing the doors, soundproofing the hatch, all of that. And now when I say soundproofing, I really mean improving the sound quality, but we'll get to that. Unfortunately, Amazon doesn't have its 2-day shipping going on right now because of the quarantine. So I'm going to have to wait until May to get the wiring kit for that, and B, some more soundproofing materials. But today we're going to do the speakers. So you can expect those in a later video, by the way. Anyway, I like these Polk DB6502s and 6652s. I had the 6501s and 651s, which they don't make anymore, in my previous car, and they sounded amazing. So that's why I'm going with these next version ones. Hopefully they sound just as good in this car. Now, one thing to note when you're doing these speakers is that you really need to have a way to drive them, because they're pretty 300 watt. They're pretty high powered speakers. They need something other than the factory head unit to drive them. In this car, I've got, as you can see, my aftermarket double din that I installed in a previous video. So that's not going to be an issue. They should be getting some more power. When I install the amp, they'll be getting the the power they need, but they should still sound pretty good with that head unit in there. So without further ado, I'll get to pulling out the doors and getting these things in there. Okay, so getting the door off on these Legacies is really quite simple. First thing you're going to do is take a little plastic pry tool and stick it into this little gap that you'll find by the door handle. There is a little gap at the top, but I find that if you pry from the back or toward the lock side, it's actually a little bit easier to pop it off. So that part just pops out like that. Just has clips on the back. So you can set that down. And then next thing we're going to do is take out this screw. Just a regular Phillips head screw holding the door on here. Set that aside. And now for the door handle itself. The way this pops in is it goes down and in, so we want to pull it from the top. And should just pop out just like that. Don't pull from the bottom or else it'll break that clip. Next we have one screw here and one screw up there. And once you've got that out, this handle's going to stay in just like that. So we can move on to popping the actual door off of the door card off of the door. I'm just going to take a little pry tool like this, slip it under the door, or a flathead screwdriver, whatever you want to use. Find the spots. There we go. And once you've got your pry tool under there, just give it a pull. So this door is just held on by a series of plastic clips. So what you want to do is just go in and pop each clip off. So once I've got a corner here like this, I like to use my hands from there, so it just kind of avoids breaking the clips. So once you've got them all, the door card hooks onto the top of the door here. So you just want to go ahead and give it a little bit of a lift. Now this this top part here does sometimes block the door from coming off. So you might not need to, but you can go ahead and just pull that off just like that. Get a pry tool in there if you need to, and then that'll just allow the door to come off a little bit easier. There you go. So now that we've got the door card off of the door and it's hanging here, you can see there are some clips back here. So first of all, you've got your power window connector, so we can just go ahead and pop that connector off. It's a bit easier with two hands. You just basically need to push down here and pull the clip out. So I'll just do that. Okay, that connector's out. Next thing we've got is the door locks here. So you've got a black latch here. Just flip that up. And then you can see there's a cable going to the bottom and a cable going to the top. The top one is the one that's actuated by the locking mechanism. So just disconnect them both and make sure you remember that the black one goes at the bottom and the white one goes at the top. Okay, so that's off. And then the last thing we've got is just that little map or puddle light. So we can just go ahead and pull that out. And then the door card should come right off. Oh, I just missed one little piece there, and that's just the second part of that harness. So I'll unclip that one as well before I remove it. So I've set the door card aside, and now as you can see, we have access to the speaker and the tweeter. So what we're going to do here is take the main driver off here, take the tweeter off, and if you take a look at the wires, you can see that there are 4 wires that go to the tweeter. Let's get that light closer. There are 2 that are brown and white and 2 that are green. So what we're going to do, what happens here actually is that the head unit sends the signal through the door, sends it up to the tweeter processes it, and then sends the lower frequencies back down to the driver. So because we're installing a sound system that has a crossover built in, what we want to do is cut these wires, get rid of the ones that go to the driver, just get the ones that come out of the door, send those to the crossover, and then the crossover is going to send the signal up to the tweeter and a signal down to the woofer. So let's just go ahead and remove this, and then we'll figure the rest of that out. Just figured I'd show this. This is interesting. Somebody has been in here and dynamited just a little bit of the door here. And it looks like there was a custom speaker installation in here before, because there's some screws drilled into the door. Weird, because on the other side, when I did that one, didn't have dynamat or those holes drilled. So apparently somebody just installed one speaker in one door. But anyway, we're going to move on to the tweeter now. Okay, so the tweeter's out, and this is where we can go ahead and cut this section here, and then we're going to use this to pull the wires through. Okay, so as you can see, the twisty pair is the pair that comes through the door. The non-twisty pair is the one that goes to the driver. So this is the source from the head unit that we're going to use to attach our crossover. Okay, so now we're going to set up our speakers for install. So wrapped up in here, we've got the driver. In here, got the tweeter. Where are you? Yep, the tweeter's in there, and then the crossover's in here. So I'll unwrap all those in a second. But one thing I want to talk about is these adapters. So I bought these adapters off a guy that sells them on one of the forums, but you can get these off eBay or Amazon or whatever. Basically, what you're looking to do with these adapters is avoid drilling into the door. I don't really like to drill into the door. You could do it by drilling into the door without the adapters, but what they also do is they give you a little bit of a spacer as well. So if you have speakers that mount deep, they can collide with the window when it goes down. So this gives you about, a ½ inch of space there to just push the speakers out a little bit, and then it adapts to the door so you don't have to drill into it. So something to think about, you might need these if you're going to do the install, depending on what speakers you go with. Just look at the mounting depth, and that should give you an indication. And then if you want to use these rings that usually come with it, you can use these to drill into the door or however you want to mount that. Anyway, enough about that. Okay, so I've started setting up the speakers here. So this is the tweeter that I pulled out of the car. And if you take a look at the Polk tweeter there, it's also nice and small. It's about the same size, right? So that means what we're going to do is, if you take a look at that screw back there, take out that screw, and this tweeter should come right out of here. Might take a little bit of prodding and force, but it'll come out. And then we're just simply going to slip that other tweeter right into here, and that'll be our mounting solution. You don't need to worry about all that other stuff that comes with these speakers. So I'll go ahead and do that, and then set the rest of this up. Okay, so I removed the old tweeter, and then I was able to just slide the new one right in there. Took a little bit of coaxing, but got in there. And then all I'll have to do is connect that to the crossover and the speaker as well. And then we'll be good to go and drop that back in the door. Now that we've got the crossover set up, the speaker ready to go in, and the tweeter ready to go in, now we need to do a little bit of crimping and stripping. So these wires here, I'm going to take my wire stripper, strip a little bit off of there, and then crimp the input wire for the crossover onto there. Alternatively, you could just take those wires and put them into the crossover, but this just gives you a little bit of extra length. And to do that, I'm going to use these little heat seal solder things. Find these really useful. I'll put a link for them in the description. But if you're like me and you have trouble getting a good connection when you crimp, what that'll do is it'll just go right on there after I strip the wire, of course. The other one will go in. I'll be able to actually visually see that they're meeting. And then when you put a heat gun on this, it shrinks this onto the wire, shrinks that one onto the other wire, and actually melts this solder in there as well. So it solders and gives a good connection electrically as well as physically. So these things are awesome. Like I said, I use them for everything. Okay, so those are connected now. The wiring diagram, funny enough, that I looked at, and most of them that I find online here, says that the front left speaker is actually supposed to be these colors, and this is the right side door. Funny enough, when I was over there, it said the opposite color too, so I find that a little strange. I don't know if the diagram's wrong or if my car is somehow messed up, but either way, the brown and white is supposed to be the positive, and the green is supposed to be the negative. And then over there, I think it's the black and white that's the positive, and the red that's the negative. Counterintuitive, right? I'm gonna plug these in and test them, and just make sure that they're properly in phase before I actually button this all up. But yeah, now we have that done. These wires are gonna connect into the input section of the crossover here. And then the wires are going to go to the speakers and tweeters respectively. Okay, so I've gotten everything connected here. And as you can see, it doesn't look great. I have this just kind of stuck in here for now. This is a temporary solution. Don't get too hung up on how this looks. And the reason is because, as I said, phase 2 is going to be installing the amp, but phase 3, I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to soundproof / Dynamats and cover all of this in insulation. Because I have this plastic sheeting here that I'm not removing today, normally I would take that off, I'd mount this to the door, and it would be nice and secure, nice and flush. Today I'm just going to leave it like this. In phase 3, the third video here, I'm going to come back in, take all that off, take that aluminum type foil, put it over everything, and then the other stuff over that as well. And this will all be nicely securely mounted at that time, so don't get too hung up on how that looks. But for now, everything's hooked up. I'm going to test it out, make sure it all sounds right, and then I'll throw the door back on. Okay, so I tested everything, it worked, put it all back together. Obviously just the reverse of taking it apart. Just make sure you test your locks and just slap everything back into place. Give it a good smack to get those clips in place, especially this one in the middle here. And that's it, on to the back. Okay, so the rear door is pretty much the same as the front door in terms of getting it off. We've got this little panel here, you pop off and then there's a screw. And then you pull this off and there's 2 screws as well, and the whole door can come off. So I'll just try and give a better angle of popping this little panel off this time. It's a bit difficult because I have to hold this latch at the same time. But if you take a look there, there's a little notch at the top. Now I find that notch is not really that useful. I just kind of throw the screwdriver right at the back there, and the whole thing comes off. Then we've got the screw in there, and it's exactly the same, so I won't go too much into detail with this video. So the rear door is much less complicated than the front door. It still has this one little wire that you need to disconnect to get off. And then the door locks as well. So you can flip this cap up and take off the door locks the same way. But to be honest, with what I'm doing today, I'm just going to leave it on there for now because I can let it hang and get right to the speaker itself. So this speaker, because it's just coaxial as opposed to a component, all we have to do is unbolt the speaker. I'll do that and then I'll talk about the wiring there. So I unbolted the speaker. If you take a look at the wiring here, so what you have is that black little wiring harness that sticks out, and that connects to that spot right there. So there's 2 options here. One of them is to get an adapter that just sticks on over the wiring harness and then gives you outputs to attach an aftermarket speaker. But to be honest, I'm going to go ahead and just clip this black adapter off and solder, or I mean heat shrink my wires right onto there, because let's be honest, I'm not selling this car, and if I do, then I'm just gonna leave the speakers on there. So it's not worth it to me to go out and get the adapter. You might think differently. Anyway, so I'm just gonna go ahead, snip this off, solder those on, and throw the speaker on. So there you have it. That's stage 1 of my audio install complete. Stage 2 is going to be the amplifier and the subs, and then stage 3 will be soundproofing and just improving the rigidity and overall sound quality of the car. If you like what you saw, go ahead and subscribe and give me a like, and be there for the next one. Thanks.